But again, instead of adding the marker here, I'll add the marker where I exactly want the clip to start. Hi, I'm Alex Jordan from Learn Color Grading and FilmSimplified.com. Today we're going to explore a small feature that most people don't even know exists, but it makes the editing process unbelievably easier and faster. So to explain how this works, let me, for example, drag these two clips here. So I have these two clips on the timeline. Let's say that I'm on top of this clip here, and then I add a marker. I use the shortcut 8, so the button 8, just to add a marker. So for example, notice that the clip is not selected. I'll add a marker, and we just added a marker here. If I click 8 one more time, I can add a name or like change the name of the marker. So call it, for example, ABC, whatever. That's the first marker. Then let's say I'm on this point, but this time I have the clip selected. Notice that the clip is selected. Again, if I hit 8, now the marker is added to the clip itself and not to the timeline. And now if I click 8 one more time, I can add a name to the marker. So like, for example, XYZ. Great. So I have two markers here. But there is one more way to add a marker, and that is to the source clip itself. Before we dive in, I just want to remind you that we're running our final sale ever with an 85% discount on everything at FilmSimplified.com. This is the same incredible deal we have been offering for the past 10 years, including lifetime access to all of our courses, lifetime updates, the full Vivid ProLat pack, the full footage library. As I mentioned last week, this is the last chance ever to get this deal. So if you're interested, check the link in the description below. So for example, I'll double click on this clip and now it's loaded into the source monitor. I'll close the inspector, make sure that I have two views to make this clear that this is the source monitor. And now in the source monitor, for example, if I want to remember to add this clip, for example, at this point when his leg hits the, like, I'm not sure what to call this, but when his leg is in this position, I can simply again click 8, add a marker, and I just added a marker here, reminding me that this is the focal point or the important point in this clip. And if I hit 8 one more time, I can again change the name of the marker. Done, and we have a name of the marker. Great. So what's this feature I'm talking about? Like, everybody knows this. Now, note here that we added the marker to the point, to the focal point, or like to the point where we want the clip to revolve around. So for example, if he's hitting this thing, and I think it's a sandbag, and when his leg hits the sandbag, once it touches it, I'll add a marker, and that's great. However, what if instead of doing that, I added the marker to where I want the clip to start, or like roughly where I want the clip to start? Because clearly I don't want the clip to start when his leg hits the sandbag. For example, let's delete this marker. I'll double click it, remove marker. And now let's say that I want the clip to start from this point. So now I will add the marker at this point. So for example, 8, add the marker, 8 one more time, hitting sandbag, and I'll hit OK. So now we added the marker at the end point, or where I want the clip to start. Great. Let's move to this point here, and let's say that now the focal point is when his like hand with the glove like hits the sandbag again. But again, instead of adding the marker here, I'll add the marker where I exactly want the clip to start. So once his hand starts moving, I will add a marker, and I'll call it glove. Great. So now we have two markers on the source clip. So how does that help us? Now, notice that we're currently in the thumbnail view. However, I will switch now by clicking here to the list view, and notice that next to each clip we have this icon that represents, hey, this is a clip. However, this clip, the clip that has markers, now has this icon, which if I click, opens the markers that I added as subclips. And each subclip takes exactly the file duration from the beginning of the marker to the beginning of the next marker. So from this marker to this marker. So if I double click this one, notice that now I opened this section as a subclip on its own. And it's very easy for me to find exactly where the action happens, because I can open this here, and this is where the glove section starts. And I can simply drag this to the timeline, and notice that I dragged exactly the portion that I want. Let's zoom in and notice that I only dragged this portion. And if I double click on this section, for example, I cannot see the rest of the clip. I'm here. If you look at the source monitor, if I try to go to the frame before this one or go to the frame after this frame, I can't, even though they totally exist in the main file. So if I double click on the main file itself and load the file, note that I have more frames. But this is now a subclip that takes this portion between these two markers, and this one is another subclip that basically takes the portion between the last marker and the end of the clip. And this makes the process much easier for me to work with longer clips. So for example, I can click here on the first one and maybe move to this portion, add an out point and drag it, and I exactly dragged the portion that I want. And on longer clips, this makes it extremely easy for me to find the correct clips that I'm looking for. So for example, in this point here, let's say for example I want the clip to start at this point. So I'll simply add a marker, click 8 again and call it mirror. Yeah, that's it. And for example, in this clip, let's say that I want it to start from this point. You see, once her legs become in the frame, I can simply add a marker one more time and call it, for example, dress, whatever. And I can even come to the end of the clip, like where I want this to end, and add another marker, even though I don't want to use this portion at the end. I just want to use this portion, but I'm just going to use this marker as an out point. So I'm just going to call it out. And this simply means that if I open this, I can ignore the out portion and simply drag the dress portion, and I have the sub clip exactly added. And for example, from this clip, I might want to use different portions. So for example, I can come to this point here and just, for example, like I like this portion here. So 8, 8, and I'm going to say looking for the book, enter, and I want it to end at this point. So I'm just going to 8, 8, call this out. And then maybe I'll just move to this point. And I think this is much easier than actually creating an in and out point and creating subclips manually, because this allows you to change things on the fly later, which also can happen in subclips, but I mean, this is easier. And here, for example, I might want to start at this frame, 8, 8, drag book. Yeah, and she moves away, and I'm just going to add another marker and call this end. And now if you click on this icon, note that we have looking for the book. This is like a subclip that starts from here to there, and this is a drag book. And it's very easy for me to understand what's going on with these clips because they're correctly named. So for example, if I drag this one, it will have exactly the portion I need. And if I drag this one, like dragging the book, it has the other portion that I need, and this makes the editing process much easier. So I hope you like this. If you like it, please visit us at filmsimplified.com, where you can join our free DaVinci Resolve crash course that is designed for the absolute beginner and will take you through every tap in Resolve.
filmsimplified.com.